All right. So I got a question. Hey, Daniel, are you also part of the Chosen, like Danny?
Yes, he is. Look at his face.
Yehudi, Ken.
Look at his face.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so this is good because my question, I proposed this idea or question to Twitter Spaces and it didn't go well, but it was a bunch of goyim like me, so this is perfect. All right. So the last week we've been seeing on Twitter just awful stuff, man, and a bunch of rhetoric about Hamas. We should glass Hamas, and they're subhuman. They're like animals, and it's all good stuff. But my idea was that I haven't heard, and I want to see what you guys think. What if we glass Israel, we turn the Gaza Strip into a Hamas petting zoo, and then the Israelis can charge a small fee. The Israelis can charge a small fee to the Palestinian kids to come to the petting zoo. Good idea, bad idea.
Wait, we're going to do all of Israel?
Yeah, I mean,
I was thinking that there should, because this is like essentially a biblical issue, and I have thought this is a biblical issue. They should deal with it in a biblical manner, which is essentially they go full King Solomon. They go, look, neither of you guys can have this. Both get out, and then whoever says, and I'm gonna whatever, like blow up, cutting the kid in half, essentially.
Well, that's the 1947 partition plan. They did that. The Jews said yes. The Arabs said genocide. And then
there you go. They already tried it.
That's already that was 1922 and 23, and then it happened again in 1947. So we've been there, done that. Tried it, failed.
Is there any way? Do you see, Daniel, any way out of just a never-ending conflict in this region?
I think Hamas needs to be thoroughly defeated and reset the balance here.
And is it true that Israel funds Hamas, or to a degree? I've seen some things
Okay, so what happened is, yes, Israel had in the 80s when Hamas was coming up. You have to understand, during this time, the PLO was a dominant faction, Yasser Arafat. And the PLO, again, the Munich things, they killed the Israelis, the suicide bombings, the assassinations. The mentality and the open statement from the PLO at the time was destroy Israel and genocide. They were pretty clear. So when they saw Hamas as a potential destabilizing force and maybe a counterbalance, they didn't sort of stop the rise of Hamas and even let a few of their more radical clerics kind of get into the Gaza Strip, because the thought was, and ended up blowing up in their face, but the thought was essentially, okay, if we can have another political power rising in the Palestinian territories, maybe there'll be some counterbalance, and through that, we could find a partner for peace. They ended up enabling the people who were more radical in the PLO, because Hamas went from, we're not just going to kill everyone in Israel, we now want a global genocide of Jews and total world domination. So not really a step in the right direction, but this is the context in which you could say, people say, well, Israel created Hamas, it's an Israeli creation. It's like, okay, let's add some context here. I don't really think Israel's great, we have these Islamic radicals on our border now with rockets, so this is exactly what we wanted. It was because the PLO was dangerous, and they realized they could not bargain with Arafat in any way, and he had no willingness for any type of peace that wasn't genocidal. They allowed sort of a Hamas to try and become a counterbalance in the region, and then that did not go.
How does one start a terrorist organization? Is there a new Hamas that's kind of like six guys sitting around a kitchen table right now?
Yeah, there kind of is. I mean, these happen all the time. Hamas and PIJ aren't the only terrorist organizations in the Palestinian territories, right? The PFLP, they're more communist, but you have these offshoots of offshoots of al-Nusra will pop up and here and there, right?
And are they all just jockeying for whoever's kind of funding all these things? They're kind of just basically trying to get
in a sense they be jockeying for Iranian funding, but a lot of them are legit religious radicals, and they have slight religious philosophical differences with Hamas, and because of that they start their own terrorist group, right? So I mean, if you look at any sort of hardline ideological movement, even I brought up the Khalistanis before, who seem to have a united thing, but even within their siege of the Golden Temple, there was a lot of infighting, and there still is a lot of infighting in the Khalistanis. When one of the reasons I was so upset that we did this over when a Khalistani leader got killed is Khalistani gang members get killed all the time in Canada. Just a week before the big kerfuffle, another Khalistani gang leader was killed, probably by a different Khalistani gang, because they're involved in criminal organizations, and there's also ideological schisms within them. So, a lot of, yes, Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, Boko Haram, Hamas, all share similar ideologies, and a lot of them are rooted in Muslim Brotherhood philosophy, but there's slight differences among them that, can schism the group. Like, this was the formation of Al-Qaeda, right? The Bin Laden faction ended up killing the Palestinian faction because, there's one faction that wanted to start with the Israel thing, and Bin Laden's faction wanted to start in the Philippines because they were mad at the Philippines for whatever reason, and then they got mad at East Timor separating from Indonesia, and that's where they started. So, when you have hardline religious radicals and there's slight philosophical disagreements, you can get a sort of schism terrorist group that pops up anytime. So there is more than just defeating Hamas here. You do have to defeat sort of the ideology of jihad in a way, and that's sort of the task Israel has to go on is to deal a significant moral blow to the jihadis.